Hello, everybody. Welcome to Unbiased America Live. We have a special show for you today, and it isn't special because Grant is on it, because nobody cares about Grant. Also, you need to go to a barber and get your beard fixed there, certainly around the edges. Gets that edged out. Um, we have a lot to talk about today, actually. There's a lot that's been going on this week. We have Grant Phillips from We Are Capitalists all the way on the left. We have Kevin Ryan there with the fireworks display in the background at his One Percenter house. He's rich. Everyone knows that. We have Matt Palumbo there, who's clearly his mom is here today. Yes, and in his mom's basement. So, it looks like he has a screen that's actually replaying the show behind him.
Yeah, I got a show right behind us live.
Yeah, that is very professional. Thank you for that.
Thank you. There's a mirror behind me, and I'm not going to take the time to move it, so...
Yeah, don't. I wouldn't. It looks like there's somebody actually sitting behind you, too. I don't know if that's a bad
I got
person. Oh, okay, I see.
No one knows wrong. Yeah.
We have a special guest with us today, Jeremy McLellan, who is a stand-up comedian. He was named the best comic in Charleston, actually. And I want to start off with a simple question. We have a lot of people talking today about PC culture. I think it was Jerry Seinfeld that said he didn't want to do comic acts on.
Seinfeld said he didn't want to do comedy on college campuses.
College campuses, right? Any truth to that? Is that?
I'm sure it's true for him. I'm sure that he. I mean, like, why is Seinfeld? Can they afford Seinfeld? I think at a certain point, when you do comedy, you can pick and choose stuff, and I mean, it's sort of a boring sort of thing where it's like, why would you go and do stand up in a place that would be very hostile to you, and that would pick apart all your stuff, and it wouldn't necessarily even happen during the show. It's like, as far as, Bill Burr, I love what he had to say about this. Just go to comedy shows at comedy clubs, and you don't really see that as much as you think.
Right.
And it's a problem. It's a very, very small minority of people who don't go to comedy shows, but they will find out what you said and then blog about it and call you out online. And if you ignore those people, then your life is fine. Like, it's a very small, very low, very, very loud minority of people online who punch well above their weight because they make you think that, like, your career is going to be ruined if you stand up to them, or if you but basically, you shouldn't apologize for anything you say because it's not going to work.
Right. So, it does, to me, though, it seems like you're not going to get an Andrew Dice Clay type of guy today that anyone's going to really. You think so?
Sure, you could. You could get. Anthony Jeselnik is beloved, but he's really he's pretty dark, and a lot of stuff he says is really wrong. And I think it depends on how you handle it. It depends on do you say something wrong, and then when you get called out, you apologize and grovel, and because that's not going to work. They're not going to be like, oh, thank you for groveling. Now I'm your fan again.
Right.
Like, it never happened. And that's so, like, if you go through enough of those things, there's been times when, like, I'll say something, somebody will get offended and call me out, and then I would, in the past, I've, like, tried to explain to them what I meant, and that never works. They don't go like, oh.
So they don't care what you meant, really. That's
right. They don't care what you meant, or even if you do explain to them and succeed in explaining to them what you meant, they're not going to go back to being your fan, right? And so, like, let's say you say something racist, that's supposedly racist, that people say is racist. If you apologize for it in public and say, I'm sorry for what I said was racist, you're not going to get those people back who don't like you.
Right.
And you just called everyone who liked that joke racist.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so you just betrayed all your fans. And, like, so, my strategy or my thing is just like, look, I'll talk to people in person if they're really mad at me or whatever, but nothing public. It's a lost cause.
What's the most hot button issue then that you talk about? What's the one that if you had to choose, people hop on, jump all over you for? Religion?
Anything related to feminism or sexism, they jump on pretty quickly. The wage gap, they jump. I have a long segment about the wage gap that's, like, ironic, and it's not like, I don't actually come out and say what I think about it, but people will get mad during the set, and it's fun. I love it. It's really fun to do. I don't know. Yeah, it just depends on the joke. I mean, it's not.
Did you ever see Bill Burr's bit on women? He did one not long ago, a couple of
No,
years ago, on
which
women.
one?
I know. They get pretty. I mean, they're pretty. He really pushes it, and I
Yeah,
mean, he does get some reaction from the audience. But
sure.
I mean, I don't know. You would think that I haven't seen much outcry about it, to be honest. And I know what you mean, that these people, if you're
Well,
going to
because
see
they
a
know it's
comedy
not
show,
going
you
to do any
expect
good.
this, right?
They know it's not going to do any good to call Bill Burr out. I mean, he'll
Hmm.
be like, "Okay, don't come to my shows," and that's the end of it.
Hmm.
Like, it's not gonna work really.
What
So
on race? I mean, aren't they going to jump all over you too? I mean, let's say that you went out there and you talked about race issues the way Chris Rock did, or the way Richard Pryor did. I mean, would you even go? Would you push it to that
like if
to
I
that
do like
limit?
the accent, if I do like
Well,
an
no,
impression.
I mean not the accent, but just jokes in kind, right? If you were to do,
Yeah.
or what Eddie Murphy was doing, if
Uh-huh.
you did jokes in kind to that same extent, I mean, would you just be
I mean,
crushed?
if I were to do bits about black people
Yeah,
the
to the
the
right,
exact same way that black people do bits about
right,
black people, I
yeah,
don't.
or about white, no, in the exact same way they do it about white people.
What's
The
that?
stereo, in the exact same way they stereotype white people. If you were to do the same thing about black people,
Okay.
would you think you would be ripped to shreds? Is there a double standard there?
Like, I mean, I don't know what stuff that I would say,
Well, think
but
of Richard Pryor, how he would stereotype how white people were, or Eddie Murphy, or any contemporary black
you
comedians
go
would
to
do
comedy
so
clubs.
today.
You go to comedy clubs, you see white comics make jokes about race, make jokes about black people, make jokes about stuff all the time, and it's
So
not
they're still
really.
pushing the envelope. They're still doing it then.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
All
and I
right.
mean, like, they might try and rip you to shreds, but like, where? Where are they gonna rip you to shreds? They're gonna come to your shows and heckle?
Hmm.
Like, if they don't do that, then like, what? Like, somebody blogged about you and you're upset about it. Like, I don't know. I mean, it affects you how you let it affect you.
Right. Well, let's say
And
comics on the margin. You're big in your area, but
yeah,
if you have if you have the greater elite or Hollywood elite attacking you, right? You're not gonna get over that hump. You know what I
well,
mean? You're
but
not.
I mean, what's the hump? Like, how many fans do you need in order to make it?
Well, be a
As
national, like you'll name people I've never heard of. I mean, there are some like Bill Burr I've heard of. He made it over the hump. There are some
yeah,
that are probably local stars I haven't heard of that may have a harder time, jumping into that larger class of fame, like as a national star.
maybe. I mean, I think that if you're undeniably funny and you're really, really good, then you can get over that. I don't think it has a lot to do
Okay.
with.
So
Uh,
so Kevin will never be a big comedian then. Okay, I
sure.
got it. Yeah, all
Depends
right.
on what you mean by funny.
Kevin will be big. He won't be a comedian.
Yeah, that's true. Now I know you guys have questions. Kevin? Why don't you start? I know you have some questions, and then we'll get to Grant.
Yeah, I do. I mean, there's a lot of questions I can ask you, but I mean, you look at how this entire presidential campaign this year is almost a farce. I mean, it
Sure.
almost just makes fun of itself. It's hard. I mean, are you
Yeah,
doing any bits on the president
yeah,
on Trump, the campaign? I mean,
sure, a
it
little bit.
seems like it's just joke overload at this point.
Yeah, and it's not just joke overload. It's that the jokes are too easy. I mean, uh, people like. I mean, it's become a saturated market where the vast majority of comics will make fun of Trump for the exact same things, and like that's funny, But like we've all heard it, and whenever there's, like a lot of times whenever you go and see comedy shows and someone's doing a bit about Trump, it's like, okay, this is funny. I've heard something similar to this because it's all just played out. It's very difficult, and there's been articles written about comics who are trying to do sketch, trying to do political jokes, and it's just so hard now because it's so easy. And like, you know, you can make fun of Trump, I guess, but it's sort of like the same thing I was talking about before, where like, is he really gonna care if you make fun of him? I mean, maybe, but I don't know. I mean, I'm one of these people that like I actually do think that Donald Trump has very thick skin. I don't think he has thin skin. People always say he has thin skin. I think he's got thick skin, and I don't think that he cares very much when people make fun of him. Maybe like a little bit. He punches back, which is different than really, letting it get to you.
Yeah, the other thing you talk about when you inevitably have an election season is Saturday Night Live. and how the media obviously can move the masses, can put their thumb on the scales and so forth, but so can the satire, I think, and you definitely see that when you watch Saturday Night Live during election season, and it almost becomes like, you remember the famous Palin skits where people started confusing the Saturday Night Live character.
A lot of people think that Sarah Palin said she could see Russia from her house.
Right, and people to this day think that she did that. And I mean, some of the greatest memories that I have of the funniest memories that you have of any of these, like Clinton going into the McDonald's and ordering the hamburgers. That of course was Phil Hartman, and I mean, but there is a way. I don't necessarily think that Saturday Night Live puts their finger on the scale as much as some of the other ones. I definitely know that they have a tendency to mock everybody, but then the late night hosts come on, and you definitely see more of a tendency to favor one person or the other. And I wonder, I mean, is that in the world of comedy, is that considered is that okay to do? I mean, I'm not saying it's not or it is, but is it okay to actually take sides and basically Sure.
I mean, yeah, go ahead, take sides. I mean, you can do whatever you want. I think that Saturday Night Live and all these shows, I mean, they have a demographic that watches them. And it's sort of like whenever John Oliver has like a segment, and it's like, John Oliver just destroyed Donald Trump. There's always those headlines that are like, John Oliver destroys Donald Trump. And I'm like, that's really going to matter for all of the Trump supporters who watch and care about what John Oliver thinks. Like, it's not, I mean, like, what are they going to, like, what's the, I don't know, I feel like a lot of comedians and people who don't have a big audience, or who have like a very narrow audience, like, okay, you destroyed Trump. Like, okay, Saturday Night Live did like a great bit making fun of Donald Trump. Well, like, how many Trump supporters like really care what Saturday Night Live thinks? I don't know.
Well, there is a lot of people, and I just have one.
I'm not a Trump supporter, but I'm guessing zero. Like, it's
I just have one more question on the other. I'll let the other guys get in, but we have a lot of talk about how people, especially younger people, are sort of getting a lot of their news from the satirical late night shows. The Jon Stewarts and so forth. Do you think
not Jon Stewart anymore? It's
right
now.
Yeah. I mean, do you notice this is a trend in comedians overall? I mean, you're obviously out there on the road, so you can hear what people are saying more than we do. But do people actually use the fact that they actually have the public's ear to try to make a difference? Do you notice that?
Oh, they do, and if they're heavy-handed about it, it's obnoxious, and people don't like it. I mean, your goal as a comedian is to make people laugh.
Right.
And you can have issues. I mean, I have issues that I care about, that I want to talk about to people, and that I want to like address a little bit. But that's not why they're there, and that's not why people came to see your show. And you can do jokes about anything, but like once you start really like preaching, and you start getting more claps than laughs, then I don't know. Like, are you a comedian anymore? Like, are you? I don't know.
See, it does seem like a lot of comedians are walking that fine line between punditry and comedy these days, at least from my perspective.
Sure, and then there's plenty who are just silly and make people laugh, and they don't do that. But they're not. It's easier to get popular if you have like an agenda. That's true.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Grant, go ahead.
All right, so we had a guy comment on the Unbiased America post about the show tonight, and he basically said to be wary of getting your media from comedians.
Sure.
Along the lines of, they're just expressing an opinion with a quirk in it.
Sure.
And it's meant to be funny. From what you've been saying, I take it you would agree with that, but at the same token, do you think that there is a way to, I don't know if you've ever considered this or seen it somewhere else, sort of express an opinion on something in a way that can be received by everybody? That is.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
you want, I mean, otherwise you're just sort of doing propaganda, I guess, and that's fine. I mean, if you want to do that, but if your main goal in comedy and online is very different than I think people's vision or people's experiences online really skew what they think about comedy, what they think about the world, what they think about like people think, because a lot of small groups punch way above their weight online, and you can think that they really matter. And so like a lot of comedians are very open about what they believe politically online, but then you come see a show. I mean, if you come see a show that I do, you're not going to be able to tell like what I think like about every issue based on my jokes. Like, you know, you can't tell what I think about the wage gap based on my 5 minutes of material on the wage gap. Like, it's just, you know, and I think it's rather obnoxious when you go and see comedy shows and it's just so obvious, because then it's like, you know, then like let's say that you're a socialist and you do comedy for socialists. Well, if you're a socialist, you'll like the comedy, and if you're not, then you won't. And it's like, it's kind of, you're not going to get better unless you're trying to reach the people who disagree with you.
So when you go to like different, I assume you go all over the country and you do shows everywhere. Do you tailor down or up, I guess, the political edge of your show based on where you are? So if like you're in New York, or you know, where Will's from, where all the other comedies live, are you gonna like tone down like maybe the libertarian side? But then if you're in like New Hampshire,
I mean,
go a little.
it's all just no. I mean, I suppose if I do like a show for like an organization that, you know, I used to work with people with disabilities, and so like if I get hired to do a show for a charity with people with disabilities, I'm going to do material about what I used to do as a for a living, like my job working with disabilities. If I do a libertarian show, it's going to have more red meat, you know, like for libertarians. If I do a show for liberals, it's going to have less of that and maybe more jokes that may appeal to them. But it's not like, you know, being a different person or you know, engaging in, you know, hired propaganda for different sides. Yeah, it just depends.
So you're telling me you don't shill for anybody? You're not cashing checks from the NRA or the Koch brothers or none of that?
I've cashed checks for the Koch brothers, but it's
yeah, I mean, it's great, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great. They got a lot of, but I mean,
Dude,
like the idea that can
deposit system at all. It's such a pain.
What's that?
I said they don't even have direct deposit. What a pain in the ass.
Yeah. Skip
I got direct deposit for them, but
someone's lying to me.
Yeah, but it's I mean the idea that, you know, doing shows for an organization will really impact your views is pretty slim. I guess if somebody gave me $1 million, that would impact my my things, but like I don't know.
You'll probably get like 50 million views from this.
Yeah, people exaggerate what how much patronage matters for comedy. I think people just already believe what they believe.
Maddie, do you have any questions?
I couldn't think of any questions, so I'm just kind of looking through your comedy page to find stuff to argue with you about, but I'm still on the hunt.
All right. Well, you let me know when you're ready to start arguing, and I want to get on some of the topics here, and I want to start with the Hillary Clinton debacle, and I want to start with Jeremy here, and I'll get to you other guys in a second because Jeremy is the important one. You guys are just filler.
Oh, yeah.
Jeremy, do you think that this is as big a deal as say the media is making it out to be? I mean, Comey went out there. He basically listed all the to a degree the statutory crimes that were committed by Hillary, and then said, look, you know, no reasonable prosecutor would bring charges.
Sure.
Do you think that was politically motivated, or do you actually think that there is no precedent for prosecuting somebody of Hillary Clinton's position?
Oh, I think it's politically motivated. I think that he would have had bad things. I mean, like this is not a conspiracy theory. This is just like a general sort of thing where, like, you know, he had lots of incentives to not prosecute her. You know, professional and, you know, how drawn out the, you know, things would be, his future in politics, whatever he wants to do. But I think that in general, like, it's more the fact that anyone else who did that would have been prosecuted, I think. and would have lost their. But like, what do you do with like political? You know, she's a political appointee, so you know she would have. I mean, but if she had been a lower level person and done all that stuff, then I think she would have been barred from you know, accessing confidential material again. But if she wins the presidency, then she has access to all of it, you know.
Right.
So it could be a thing, you know. It's like like whenever a politician gets caught, you know, smoking pot or you know, doing drugs, and they get a slap on the wrist. It's like, you know, I think drugs should be legal, but the outrage is that like they are above the law now, and so it's more. I don't know. It's like it seems to be a separate question. It's like obviously she's being treated better. Obviously, there's laws that apply to all of us, and then there's laws who apply to the ruling, you know, the ruling class. But I don't think that you know necessarily that if I don't know. I mean, if she was a lower level person, do I think she should be indicted? I don't know.
Right, Kevin. I want to get your opinion on this. I've been waiting to hear this. I mean, when Comey went out there, he virtually said. I posted a post on UA about it today. I wrote the relevant points of which code she broke on the Espionage Act, and some lawyers were bringing this up months ago. I think it was Mark Levin was bringing this up last summer about U.S. Code 793, Section F, which says you don't have to have intent. It's just about the gross negligence of leaving, you know, sensitive national security information out in the open, unsecured, or moving it from where it's not legally supposed to be. Like, and by law, that stuff has to be on a government server, and that gross negligence alone is enough to prosecute, and that you get up to 10 years in prison or a fine or both. It's pretty clear on what it is. Comey read it out, said this is exactly what she violated, and then said no reasonable prosecutor would press charges. Do you think that that's politically motivated? I mean, is there any other explanation?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but I've heard both sides of the argument in the media. You had Rudy Giuliani, a former prosecutor, get up there and say the exact opposite, and say that if this is misjustice, that they're not actually recommending filing charges. But I think the overall narrative that the media, the mainstream media, has come around to after scratching their own heads as to, I mean, I watched the news conference live, and 3/4 of the way through, I was convinced that this guy was going to, was going to recommend charges, and then all of a sudden he says, despite everything he basically says, despite everything I said, no prosecutor in their right mind would bring this case. And then I think you had a lot of people, even in the liberal media, a lot of people were scratching their heads like, this guy just made a damning indictment of her, and now he's saying, but we're not going to recommend anything. And I think what they've come around to, if you actually read his statement, is that I think prosecutors put way more emphasis on intent, and they feel like without the intent, people generally don't prosecute for simply being negligent. At least in the past, when as far as these statutes have gone. Now, I don't know if that's true. I'm just telling you what the narrative has become, is that people, that really you have to have intent, even though the statute says you don't need intent, that realistically it has not been, charges haven't been filed, or prosecutions, certainly at this level, haven't happened. That's the narrative. I don't know if it's true or not, but I think they found their narrative, and they're sticking to it as a way of sort of supporting the Hillary side of it.
Yeah, let's go to Matt here. As you said, intent. Again, the statute, what you said, doesn't have to be intent. The purpose is that they don't want people fumbling around sensitive national security stuff. They want it all on secured servers. As a matter of national security. They don't want the enemies to find out, obviously, what we're doing. So the incentive is that even if you're negligent, they want to avoid negligence. So, Matty, didn't they just rewrite the code saying, well, you were negligent, you knew that it was you were being negligent, where the statute says even gross negligence is a low enough bar to prosecute. Basically what they're saying is we're going to change that whole statute, you're okay, you're good. You did this, and
yeah,
you're good.
What Comey seemed to say was she's guilty, but we can't do anything when he was giving his speech reading the verdict.
Sure.
And as you were saying, he put a lot of emphasis on intent, and so there's no precedent without intent. But as we're kind of before the show, there was Brian Nishimura, and he pleaded guilty for a very similar misselling information. And there's actually a great article on Heat Street called, titled, 5 people not named Hillary Clinton who were punished for mishandling classified information. And in each of their cases, it was all within the past 2 years. What they did was very similar to what Hillary did in terms of mishandling information, and the difference is they're not Hillary Clinton.
Right. And, what's pretty odd is that hours after the statement came out, here's Obama campaigning with Hillary. And they'll tell you that, oh, well, this was that was planned long before James Comey's statement. But that doesn't mean that they didn't say, hey, get this statement out before I go campaigning with Hillary. I mean, it seems to be all kind of orchestrated to a degree. Would you agree, Maddie?
Yeah, and especially, even with that Loretta Lynch meeting with Clinton just a few days ago, she originally came out and said, oh, it's just an accident, but I understand why people would think it was suspicious. And then it turned out it was a planned meeting that went on for a half hour.
Right.
So, of course you can see why we're skeptical.
Right. Grant, this is kind of what I think happened. I think that meeting with Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton probably wasn't much of anything, but looked really horrible. And then I think James Comey was going to come out with what the FBI found and not make any recommendation. He doesn't need to make a recommendation. Ultimately it's the Attorney General that decides to prosecute. Ultimately it's the President that decides to prosecute. And we knew months ago that they were not going to decide to prosecute no matter what. So it didn't really matter. As soon as Biden dropped out of the race, you knew that Hillary was under no threat of indictment. But now with that meeting, it would look bad if Loretta Lynch made the decision not to prosecute. So they just threw it all onto James Comey, saying, "Look, we need you to go out there and, not recommend charges. So we can get this, we can have the problem off our back." What do you think?
Oh, well, I think the color is pretty clear here. It was a complete setup from the beginning. Comey was a complete patsy. He's going to get a nice promotion once Hillary Clinton becomes president. And she's going to take care of him. This is political establishment 101. This might be, in my opinion, the boldest, most obvious act of corruption in the last, 10 years, maybe the 21st century. I think so. This guy stood up there and actually said, she broke all of these laws, but we don't recommend charging her. How just... Isn't
he a Republican?
This is the crime of the century.
I don't know. He went after Republicans pretty hard in the Bush administration, specifically the Scooter Libby incident, which doesn't really have much on this.
That really makes it look worse, though, because now he's just like once his pal is getting charged with or possibly getting charged with the same exact crime, she's just gonna not charge him.
Let me ask Jeremy this question. I'll get to Kevin on this.
He would have been convicted either, though. I think if he did charge, he would have been convicted.
I want to get to ask Jeremy this question, then I want to get to Kevin. We've seen with Obama, he's been through numerous scandals: the Fast and Furious scandal, the VA scandal, the IRS scandal, the AP scandal, and these are some pretty serious allegations. Some of those are going after the media. The IRS thing was going after conservative groups, using the IRS to do so, which is basically the intimidation arm of the federal government. And now Hillary Clinton is a scandal that's in his administration. Hillary Clinton working under Barack Obama, and then you have, now you have Hillary Clinton, who's not even the president yet, has already engaged in her first scandal. Do you think that the media, comedians, and most of the pop culture scene are really giving Obama a pass? Bush would never get a pass. Bush never got even close to a pass like this. The Valerie Plame incident turned into this huge, giant problem, and it has nothing on these other scandals.
I don't know if I think that as far as scandals go, Obama's administration has been not as noisy as you're making it out to be. There's a few. And you've listed them. I think that compared to other things, but your idea that the media is, the media is liberal, sure. They're not ultra leftist, but they're liberal, and comedians are liberals, and so you're right. I have not heard any jokes by comedians about Fast and Furious, except for maybe some puns about the movie. But that's true. But I don't know. I guess I don't see there being much of a concerted effort among comedians to give his scandals of past. But yeah, I mean, Obama feels like he's. I mean, if you're a comedian, you think of yourself as an intellectual and like part of the elite. Obama feels like one of you, whereas they called Bush mentally retarded for 8 years, and just constantly. And as someone who worked with mentally disabled, I was not a huge fan of that trope. But I felt like, they do, and this is what I was saying, before we started joining, that if I had to pick just selfishly, which candidate I want to win, I would want Hillary to win, because the amount of comedians to go after, or who will go after Trump, is going to be astronomically higher than the number of comedians who will go after Hillary. And so it's a completely saturated market. Like my friend Toby Murciano was talking about, he's a comic in LA, just like, he about how much of a saturated market anti-Trump comedians will be. And so, but if Hillary wins, then I'll keep doing what I'm doing, and I'll have more of a niche. So,
Kevin, let's get to you on that. I mean, well, actually, what? Let me ask you this, just one quick question, Jeremy. Obama's approval rating's 56%, right?
Okay.
I mean, there's people, he has a high approval rating.
Yeah.
But when you get into his policies, people don't like his policies. They don't like the direction he's brought the country. I think part of that is media narratives. I mean, especially comedians, late-night comedians, they treat this guy like he's one of them. He's awesome. Barack Obama's this really cool guy, this down-to-earth, 21st century guy.
Yeah, he is one of them. He is pretty cool.
So then it's like, so people generally like him personally.
He's cool.
Whereas his policies, they don't generally tend to like. Whereas George W. Bush, they attacked him personally. He wasn't cool. He was this backwards Texas gunslinger. You know what I mean? He was.
That is classism in.
Right.
Yeah, it's classism, and Bush used that. I mean, he played up the idea that he was this Southern bumpkin when he's he's from Connecticut or whatever. Like, he played up the idea that he was this Southern everyman, and he is. But and he played down his intelligence. He's a very George W. Bush, very smart man, despite what everybody said.
Reagan did the same thing. And Reagan got the same backlash from the media. He was this big dummy actor that's a puppet for everyone else. He looks to the stars.
Trump does that. Trump deliberately does things to elicit liberal backlash, which will then make him seem great. I mean, the picture of him with the Mexican
tostada? Yeah, the tostada.
The like the bowl or whatever. And he was like, I love Mexicans. And then that was perfect, because then the entire liberal America made fun of him for it. And there's a lot of people, Trump supporters, people, white people, who think that that's a genuine thing. Like, if I'm trying to compliment Mexicans, I'll say I like their food. Like, that's a normal thing that people do with cultures. And so I thought that was brilliant on Trump's part. And because his audience wasn't Mexicans, his audience was white Americans who think like that. So I thought it was brilliant. And
Jeremy,
so, yeah.
No, keep going. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think when people make fun of Trump, it emboldens him. It emboldens his campaign. It gains him support when people call him names. I mean, like you said earlier, he swings back at him, and I think that actually helps him. So that when people Trump is the Mexican thing, he was just like, yeah, bring it on, And I think it's been a cornerstone of his campaign this entire election.
Yeah, I mean, Trump is what every single poor person in the United States would be if they won the lottery. They would immediately start acting like Trump, and that's great, and that's wonderful. That's exactly what So it's as opposed to. People think the poor, they hate the rich. They hate, they're really going to hate Donald Trump once they find out how rich he is. No, because they would totally be they want to be like him. So,
yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea if he's going to win or not, but I think that's part of his.
That's the best description of Trump I've ever heard.
Yeah, I mean, John Mulaney has a thing about John Mulaney has a joke about that. that Trump is what a hobo imagines a rich person to be. And so it's sort of like that. But yeah, like if a poor person in America, when they win the lottery, they're not like, oh, I think I will enjoy some like subdued, finer versions. I think I'll go read some philosophy. No, they're gonna go out. They're gonna get a bunch of women. They're gonna like get some mansions and like make a solid gold car. They're gonna put their name on everything. Like that's exactly what any poor person would do in America if they won the lottery. That's Trump.
Kevin, I want to get to you now, and I want to ask the first question that I asked Jeremy. I mean, the IRS scandal, the AP scandal, those are very serious scandals to use the federal government as an apparatus to go after citizens. The AP scandal, you're using the federal government as an apparatus to go through the emails of the Associated Press, as well as the James Rosen at Fox News. They actually went through their emails, and to a degree that's very intimidating for reporters. I mean, you don't want to have your personal information accessed. I can't remember precisely what happened to James Rosen, but he was denied access to something or somewhere. Sometimes some of these reporters have been put on. I think it was a fellow from National Review. I can't think of his name right now, but he was put on a terrorist watch list, and is having a hard time getting off. Why is it that none of these scandals has reached the limit, have reached the degree of what's gone on in the Bush administration, smaller scandals? And why is it that this Hillary scandal, now that you have Benghazi too, where that report came out last week that showed that it was a blatant lie, that the State Department did a horrible job of providing any sort of security for Chris Stevens in Benghazi. They were derelict in their duty there. How is she getting away with all this stuff? How is Obama getting away with all these myriad scandals? The VA scandal, it's like everybody forgot about it, that the ineptitude of the VA and how many people were hurt. Is this about narratives? Is this about the media providing cover? Go ahead.
Well, I a couple things. I think I'm not a conspiracy guy, all right? So I don't think there's a vast conspiracy against out to put all these scandals, to bury all these scandals. Some, maybe people in back rooms or, having drinks at night will say, that's just stupid, I'm not going to cover it. But there is definitely on the margins, there's an effect of having the people that are supposedly the watchdogs of the American public, the press. There's definitely an effect of having so many of them being liberal. And in a lot of cases it's subconscious. I've done a lot of reading about this, and it goes both ways. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you're a conservative columnist or a conservative reporter, you're going to suffer from the same biases. But because the majority of the press are, and comedians, by the way, are liberal, I think you end up in a situation where you have less. There's less Woodward and Bernsteins out there really looking under rocks and staying up late and doing the extra due diligence to find the bottom, what's underneath these scandals. And I think a lot of them also take the narrative that is given to them and they just run with it. And on top of that, like you alluded to, I think Clinton and Bush have done, Clinton and Obama have done a great job. Well, all presidents do a great job of basically of putting their weight down on the people that are covering them and saying we're gonna cut off access if you don't cover this the way we want you to cover it. And this actually has been proven. I mean, people have actually come out like whistleblowers and said this is what they said, this is what they did. So that's to be expected, though. I mean, if you're a politician, if you're a president, of course, you're going to do everything possible.
Ben Rhodes actually bragged about manipulating the media with the Iran deal. I mean, he bragged about it. And the media does not, they don't, what are they going to, they don't do anything. They don't seem to do anything. They laugh at them. They're laughing at them as puppets. I just think the
overall effect is because that there is such a high disparity of the number of liberal people in the media versus more conservative ones, is that you don't get the same effort that you would if there was somebody, if there was a conservative in office. Does that mean? I'll let you understand. Does that mean that there's something bigger to all these scandals? I don't know. The IRS one, I certainly think could have been something big that was covered up. But does that mean all these other things are actually huge scandals? I don't know.
Okay, go ahead, Jeremy. I know you had something to add. I'll get
to I think that whether a scandal matters has more to do with just whether it fits confirmation bias about what you already think about the candidate. I mean, Fast and Furious, like, I mean, that was a dumb plan that they had, and it was stupid, and they covered it up. I don't know what that really fits as far as like what, like, you know, what a conservative doesn't like about Obama. Like, how does that scandal fit into the narrative they have about Obama? It doesn't really fit like very well. I mean, liar, that's sort of normal, but like if Obama has a scandal that makes him seem like he's, you know, smuggling immigrants in, that would fit. You know, that, and I don't know if that's true, but like that would fit like a narrative that they have about Obama, or he's being really easy on people from the Middle East. Like, oh, that would fit. But as far as Fast and Furious, so I think like the scandals that Obama has had, like the IRS thing definitely would have fit. But a lot of the other scandals, like Hillary Clinton's email thing, showed that she was careless. But that's not really like, I don't know if that really fits like what people think about Hillary. Like, there's no stereotype of Hillary as like, you know, like not as like slightly careless with technology. So I mean, I think that might explain. Whereas like if Trump, like now if Trump said something racist, well, everyone already agrees that Trump is this racist person, and so if Trump says something about race or about any ethnicity or about a nation, even if it's not about a race, if it's about a nation, that fits the narrative, and so that becomes a scandal. And so I don't know. I think it just has more to do with confirmation bias than, you know, than it like really being a big cover-up.
Let me get to Matt. Matt, you know, confirmation bias, all this biases in the media and people's biases. Does the truth matter anymore? I mean, look at Donald Trump. No one ever accused Donald Trump of being a racist. For I don't know what it was, for 69 years out of his life. Now he's running for president, and all you hear he's a xenophobic, racist, race-baiting, blah blah, whatever racist, anti-Semite now because he put a star on a brochure, yeah, on a political ad. Do you think it's just a matter of building narratives, that the truth really doesn't matter? It's just, let's build this narrative that Trump is a racist, and let's replace reason, logic, and facts with just repetition and hope for the best.
Yeah, he's an anti-Semite with a Jewish daughter and son-in-law.
Right, apparently. Right. So
but,
I mean,
yeah, I mean, to this.
Go ahead.
No, I mean, like.
No, but I mean, yeah.
People... Hold on, Jeremy. I'll get you in there. Go ahead, Matt.
Okay, no, but yeah, to this. Yeah, I do think the narrative matters a little bit more to these people. I mean, if you argue with a lot of campus liberals, they'll tell you, you know, you need to listen to their experiences, or if you quote statistics, they'll tell you you're invalidating their experiences. And it's like they view how certain people experience reality as objective fact, while statistical analysis and the scientific method is just subjective.
Right. So it's about, I mean, and you've been in academia before. I mean, I've had political science professors tell me, you know, the subjective matters, that objectivity really, you know, is kind of this social construct, and they claim it is what they're trying to do, that objectivity in these facts and these statistics are in fact just constructs that you create, that the scientific method itself, they'll go so far as saying, is but a mere construct, and it's created by, you know.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I remember before entering college thinking like all professors were these brilliant, infallible purveyors of knowledge, and they did a lot to convince me otherwise.
Right. Grant, I know you deal with this a lot on your page and other page. I think he's frozen. Are you there, buddy?
I'm here.
Okay. I know you deal with this a lot, that you get the, you know, the same claims about Donald Trump. I mean, that's what we're focused on. We're not focused on you know, what came out about Hillary Clinton and the Benghazi scandal. We're not focused on, you know, today we've been focused on what happened with the FBI and what James Comey said. But I mean, it seems that the truth doesn't matter. What comes out in these documents, what Hillary Clinton actually doesn't do. It's just Trump's a racist, you see. And we have another narrative that I'm going to bring up in a minute here, with all these shootings, the Michael Brown shooting, the Ferguson effect, so on and so forth. Do you think the narrative matters more than the truth, irrespective of your confirmation bias? Is that the media works together in conjunction, they get talking points, and they try to perpetuate a narrative rather than the truth?
Yeah, I mean, I think throughout this whole election season, the microscope has been on Donald Trump, and Hillary's kind of a free pass and everything. But that's what happens when most of the media is left-leaning bias. I mean, even for a while, some people on Fox News would go after Trump for various things until more so recently. That was kind of earlier in the campaign season. But there was that sort of microscope on everything that what Trump supporters say. That was all of a sudden attributed to Donald Trump, and that was his fault for some reason. And largely the violent protests that were going on by Trump protesters were ignored. I mean, there was a video of a poor woman cornered and spit on and stuff thrown at her, and it wasn't ever really. I didn't really see a whole lot of media coverage about that, except for like some dude filmed it on his phone and tweeted it out. I didn't really see a lot of CNN or MSNBC covering that. So it is about what you want to make it, or what the media wants to make it. But I think that the same can be said of the right in some regards, but way more of the left. And so you expect it out of any kind of political gandering, but more so out of the left.
There was another shooting today. I think the fellow's name is Alton Sterling. Not much of the facts are out yet. There was a video. What facts have you got so far, Grant? The guy was a felon with a gun, with a weapon,
yeah,
right?
Repeat felon carrying a gun in Louisiana, which means you're breaking the law right off the bat there.
And he was selling something outside some store.
And I think he was misidentified as someone who they were calling for a gun-related incident, and I guess they wanted to pat him down, searching for weapons, and he of course said no because he had a gun on him and he's a felon, and then it just kind of escalated from there.
Right.
But yes, of course,
Do you know what he was a felon for?
I don't know the list of charges, but it was quite the laundry list of things. I can't remember off the top of my head. It ranged from domestic battery to drugs to theft to burglary. Grand Theft Auto, I think, may have been on there. I don't remember. It was list though. I mean, the guy's clearly not allowed to own or possess a firearm.
Did they know those things when they approached him or when they had him?
Oh, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. Like all the facts aren't out yet, other than what.
Well, here's the fact: the guy resisted arrest and had a gun, right?
I assume they were responding to a call of a guy who had a gun.
But hold on a second.
This could be the guy, and then it turns out he had the gun.
Hold on. The point of the matter is, it doesn't matter if he has a laundry list, if he was a criminal before, if he was a Boy Scout. The cops show up. They want to pat him down. He resists arrest and has a weapon on him. As soon as you resist arrest, now you have a problem here. You have a problem because what if he gets the gun out and shoots one of the cops? We don't have all the facts. We don't know what's going on. This has happened with Freddie Gray. Everybody was acquitted, by the way. You didn't hear a word about that. At first, all these people were racist. You saw it, right. Did you hear about, everyone was a racist at first, and we have a huge problem, and you heard the same with Michael Brown. He was acquitted. The same thing in Ferguson with Trayvon Martin. He was this young kid that was just trying to have a good time or buy an iced tea. So you see a lot of these narratives begin, and it's already started. You already have a narrative that started without any of the facts, that these guys are these racist white guys that were out to kill a black guy today. And they parade the family up with a guy with a Trayvon shirt on. They're already trying to do it. Look, Marilyn Mosby in Baltimore tried to poison the jury pool. She convicted these police officers before they even had trial. But basically...
She's facing disbarment charges right now.
Well, she should be behind bars, is where she should be. But it seems that we have a society here that cares more about a narrative, and everyone tries to jump on it right from the start.
It's pretty dangerous too, because it's not like they went out to like kill a black kid, like some kind, like when you're a police officer.
Maybe they did. Maybe they did. I don't have. Who knows? We don't know yet. Do we know? We don't know.
I highly doubt it.
Okay,
so
we don't know. But the thing is, everybody's saying that's what the assumption is, because they have white skin. You see, that they wanted to go out and kill a black guy today. That they got up out of bed and said, "Boy, I want to arrest a guy that has a weapon on him that resists arrest, because that's what I want to happen." I mean, that's
Who said that?
Huh?
Who said that?
It's not about whether they said it. It's that the assumption already is these guys are they're on paid leave, and the Department of Justice, the Federal Department of Injustice, that won't press charges against Hillary Clinton, and that didn't press any charges about the Black Panthers when they were outside voting booth in Philadelphia. Of course, they take over the investigation for a reason I don't know why. They want to federalize local police departments, is what I can only assume. And the narrative is that these guys are white and they shot a black guy because of the color of his skin. They wouldn't be covering it otherwise. And Kevin and I'll get to Kevin in a second, but we talk about this a lot. And Jeremy, I mean, it's just clear to me that it's about narratives and not the truth. Nobody wants to get to the truth here. Thank God we have a justice system that seems that does to whatever degree. But I mean, it seems that a lot of these people are convicted beforehand, and it harms the black community because you see spikes in violent crime because police officers won't go into these urban areas for this particular reason. Is that they're terrified of things like this happening? Go ahead.
I think if you replace these cops with Hillary Clinton and everything you just said, it would match perfectly with what the left is doing about Hillary Clinton. Like, wow, it just fits a narrative, and so. I mean, I don't know. But
the truth matters. My point is not about narratives, but about the truth.
We have a ruling class in America that it's very, very hard to indict, that break the rules without regard to the rest of us. And I think that, whether it's, I'm not, I think whether it's Hillary Clinton, I mean, it's just so interesting to me that that let's say they decide not to indict the cop, and I watched the video and I think the video looks pretty bad. But sure, if let's say he doesn't get indicted, the cop doesn't get indicted, the cop doesn't even get, he's out on the streets next week or whatever. It's interesting to me that the Venn diagram of people upset that Hillary didn't get indicted and the diagram of people upset that the cop didn't get indicted will not overlap very much. I think it will overlap mostly with libertarians, but the vast majority of the people are just they're okay with one segment of the ruling class not being indicted.
Right, but my concern more is not what the people want or what side wants it. My concern is with the truth. Kevin, we talked about this yesterday when I almost had Tommy Lahren on the show, who's a lightning rod for these race issues.
That was a good almost get.
Yeah, she'll be on next Tuesday, by the way. But you've done a lot of work on this, and a lot of this information isn't out there. That white people, as a percentage of crimes, are killed at a higher rate than black people. And there's been a study showing that these, let's not even look at what James Comey said. Don't take his word then when he talks about there's a Ferguson effect and cops are scared to go into black neighborhoods for this reason. His word's no good then, unless he's not recommending charges against Hillary Clinton and all of a sudden the guy's, infallible. But this harms black communities, does it not? These narratives, you have little children being shot in the south side of Chicago. You have cops that don't want to go there. Since they stopped to stop and frisk, killings have spiked. And I mean, the killings there are already to the degree of Afghanistan. You know what I mean? A war zone. What's going on here? I mean, does that play into the whole, to our idea of narratives being driven? That, we have this white society. You saw this with the Orlando shooter. We have this white Christian society, this white hegemony that is out to get black people.
Yes, but I think the narrative isn't so much being driven by the people in the neighborhood. I don't even think it's being driven by so much the Al Sharptons of the world, because they pretty much get marginalized as
they hop on it. They just hop on the train.
But
right.
The media is, the media specifically, and I'm going to call out CNN on this, is the one that has been, after the Michael Brown riots, they had a ratings bonanza, and what happened after that was, for a long time, just about every time you went to their website or you turned on CNN, there would be a new shooting that there would be no details about, but it would be white cop shoots black guy. And it's like they were throwing things at the screen to see what stuck. And they wanted, this is a horrible thing to say, but this is the way I view it. They wanted another riot. They were basically trying to provoke other riots by constantly pointing to, in almost all the cases that they threw out there, turned out to be absolutely, had nothing to do with misconduct by the police. And I'm the last person who's going to say that, okay, the police should be able to do whatever they want. That's not me. But what I am saying is, like you said, there has to be a point at which you say, okay, this just happened. Let's take a step back before we go out there and try to tell the world that this, infer that something bad happened. Let's take a step back, because you're right. The people that end up getting hurt are the people in the communities
That's right.
that end up protesting something that turns out not to be what is being presented at.
But everyone cares so much about them. They have to show how much they care about them, though, by creating a narrative that hurts them. And you know what, Kevin? Tom Sowell brings this up all the time. You say CNN wants to incite a riot. Who are the people that are most hurt in the riot? These are minority-owned businesses.
Right.
Right? I mean, Sowell points it out. Wherever there were riots, it was the black community that was the most harmed.
Right. And the other thing that you touched on, just before you move on, I just wanted to mention was the numbers, the statistics. Yeah. I have not seen this out there anywhere. I think I might have been the first one to actually
I haven't seen it anywhere.
Do these numbers and actually sort of look at not just the numbers of white people versus black people that are killed by police officers, but then to actually look at the amount of violent crime committed by whites versus blacks, and then say, okay, instead of just looking at which population gets shot the most, let's look at which population gets shot as a percent of how many violent crimes they commit. And it turns out whites, by almost a 2-to-1 margin, were getting shot more often by a 2-to-1 margin per violent crime that they committed.
I have it right here. It's one death for white people. It's 1 death per 818 violent crimes. For black people, it's 1 death per 1,455 violent crimes. So
I did not. Those aren't manufactured numbers. I didn't.
The BJS.
I didn't go into it looking to find something, but when that number stuck out, and I've tried to tell people this, I've been called a racist for just pointing to the numbers and saying, look, this is happening. It goes against the narrative that you're spreading. Does that mean cops are off the hook and are all good?
No.
Does this mean black people are all bad? Does this mean white people are great? Nothing. It means nothing. All it means is you're looking in the wrong direction, do a little bit better job of covering these issues, try to find the real numbers, and then ask yourself what's going on here.
Right. Like what we're saying is there very well could be a race thing here.
Absolutely.
What happened today. What we're saying is you have to look at the evidence. Do you have evidence to support that claim? It's not just, well, again, it's just why people opine so quickly is to hop on the narrative train. And I'll read the numbers for per arrest. This isn't violent crimes. This is just per arrest. For white people, it's 1 death per 22,615 arrests, and for black people, it's 1 death per 24,750 arrests. And that hardly plays into the narrative of that there's this, propensity of police brutality amongst minority communities. And again, you pointed out that guy, the Journal of, I forgot the name of it. I have it here somewhere. They did a study. It was the Journal of Experimental Criminology. A fellow did a study that shows police officers are more hesitant to shoot black suspects because they're nervous about what's going to happen to them in the media, what's going to happen to their pension, their families, and so on. If you look at the guy with the Michael Brown case, that guy will probably never work again. I mean, here he was acquitted of the charges. It's not looking good for him at all. Like, you don't want to be known as the guy that shot Michael Brown, the hands up thing.
But let me just say one thing about the stat you just said. That's not necessarily a bad thing. That police are taking a step back and aren't actually going to draw their weapon as much as it could be a bad thing. And there's a lot of debate about whether or not this is going to hurt the ability of the police to go out there and fight crime, or whether or not more police are going to get killed, or maybe police have. This is the study that needs to be done. Are police too quick to pull their weapon? That I don't know about. I haven't seen that study, but I will say this: if it results in less people dying, the police are more cautious, and that results in less people dying overall. Maybe it's a good thing.
Well, here's the stats don't bear that out. It seems that more people are dying when cops at the margins don't do the extra work it takes to prevent a lot of these deaths, like the spike in Baltimore and in Chicago, and in these inner cities, crime has gone up exponentially to a degree. So I don't think it's helping. And I think this narrative harms these communities that are most vulnerable. And again, because of government, the bad public schooling, minimum wage laws, there's no opportunities here. Again, if you look at my work on Unbiased America, you know that these communities were largely created by racist policies coming from the federal government during the FDR's administration. So it's amazing that you have these counter narratives and other narratives, and no one really cares about the truth, and people are getting hurt, and that's what bothers me. We have a few minutes left. Go ahead, Grant. You're off.
Oh, I got it. On this issue, it's a seen and the unseen matter. You try to impose things on the cops to make them more safe, and if they're more safe, they're not doing the job to the fullest extent of their ability. People go unarrested. They walk the streets, and then they go commit crime elsewhere. So just because you reduce crime here doesn't mean you reduce crime everywhere.
Right.
I don't think people really see it. It's a very narrow perspective on it.
All right, and we don't have any time left, but I just want to say thank you to Jeremy for coming on. Jeremy is performing at the. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Jeremy. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, just thanks for having me.
Okay, Jeremy's performing at the Young Americans for Liberty National Convention. Where is that this year?
It's in DC.
Okay. I went to that a couple of years ago. It's pretty fun. They loved me there. We have Grant Phillips for We Are Capitalists. Also, Kevin Ryan. You could check out Kevin Ryan's work on the police stats and stuff at Unbiased America. You could search the page, and eventually we'll run those again, probably this week.
Yeah, I'm gonna run all those posts again and try to update them.
Okay.
Having Tommy coming on next week, and next week you guys are gonna talk about that.
Okay, and then for Matt Palumbo, who of course isn't there, he's probably eating a bean burrito or something somewhere. Thanks for watching, everybody. Tune in next week. I will have Alveda King on next Monday and Tommy Lahren on Tuesday, and then Wednesday we'll have our show. Again, thank you, Jeremy, for coming on. Have a great day, everybody.
Sure.